the mistake that most often happens is I come into a relationship with you and then I do what I think worked with Ntabi saying on you. And just because the pounding hard worked next door, and then I automatically think it's something that's going to work again here. The reality is that sex is the highest form of intimacy. The sooner we learn how to address conflict, the sooner we can. So addressing conflict becomes a form of foreplay now in itself.
Welcome all you pillow talkers to a brand new episode of Bedtime the podcast. Now tonight, I'm in bed with Leroy and we are having the male conversation. All you men out there, come close. This one's for you. We're going to talk about how men, view intimacy, and in the bedroom particularly, how is it that some things, go for them? I want to find out. Leroy is an author and he is also a champion for marriages. That's also something I want to talk to him about. Welcome to Bedtime, the podcast, Leroy.
Thank you for having me. Literally in the bed.
In bed with Leroy. This is the vibe. That's what's going on, right? I'm very, very pleased that you made the time and I really appreciate it because this is a conversation that's been, it's a thing that's been on my heart for a long time about what's viewed as the traditional male character, heteronormative setting, the males that raised us, some of us, and how, when it comes to intimacy, they low-key shy away from the conversation. They feel like it's for other people, not them. Like, don't talk about it. Talk about sex. And just feelings in general. Do you find that with your work, what I'm saying is common, or is that taking a change?
Oh yeah, it's slowly changing, but you need to bear in mind that back in the day, sex was not the topic of choice. Neither was affection. No, it's allowed jola o ye me go purchasing o bona motho mo go latlhela.
Yes,
so affection was something that was not displayed, whether it be from a public point of view or even in the homes where we grew up in. It was very rare to see. Well, my dad was very affectionate, so it was very. I know in some homes it was rare to see a father and a mother literally being intimate, not literally being intimate, but just showing that level of affection in front of their kids. And then again, the idea, whenever we talk about sex, the idea of sex has always been taboo. So we don't literally gravitate towards those conversations. That's why when we start having sex, it's something that we explore on our own, or it's something we explore with our friends. And I remember in school, even people who had not even had sex, they would display an idea where they've had sex. So no man wanted to come out and look like they were, for it to be known or they were a virgin, because sex has always been associated with ego, pride, and a level of confidence where men are concerned. So that is why even though they had not had sex, they would display a demeanor as if to say they have had sex, because it made them look confident, it made them look like that guy that needed to be respected. So, but I think it's slowly changing, and that mindset has affected how people relate in the bedroom, whether be it in committed relationships or marriage as a whole. So you find that people still are hooked in that mentality and mindset that they came of their conceptualization of sex before the relationship or before marriage. So they bring that into the marriage. And I guess that's why conversations like this are important. That's why therapy is important. And that's why people learning to explore themselves sexually is important as well.
You've said a lot, and I want every bit of it. The part where you said we go and we learn on our own.
Yeah.
I feel like, first I must ask you, is it because your dad was affectionate that now you are into this space of wanting to talk about and growing marriages and relationships? Or do you find that, it's really not done anything against your peers? You feel like being from a home with an affectionate dad and being from just what we didn't experience, some of us, for you feel like it's equal footing?
No, it isn't. I think sex is a personal journey. It all depends on how far you're willing to stretch your sexual curiosities and how far am I willing to stretch mine. And then when we get together, the question now is, do we have a conversation on how far stretched your imagination is, your experiences are, and your expectations are? So I think the problem is that when we think by the time we say I love you and you say I love you too, sex will take care of itself. We automatically think or it's a feeling thing instead of understanding that there's a biological mechanism behind it that needs to be understood. There's an anatomy there that needs to be understood. And then beginning to learn the concepts there that are different, that it takes about a minute to 2 for me to reach an ejaculation, and it takes 7 to 15 minutes for you to even get to the place of just being
20.
wet. Yes. Yeah. So by the time I'm ready to go, you are still just getting started.
You understand?
Yeah. So I think it's an issue of having, and I think people generally just don't like to have this conversation. So the mistake that most often happens is I come into a relationship with you, and then I do what I think worked with Ntabi saying on you. And just because the pounding hard worked next door, and then I automatically think it's something that's going to work again here, without first understanding the psychology, the emotion, and where people are, because sex has to do with all of these things.
So key. The conversation around the imagination as well, because again, we come and we talk as a friend group. We've got different homes, and then there's this gap of gaining knowledge. How does that, because I think for me that's the differentiator, because like you're saying, a man will come to me and want to maybe learn, or to a woman and want to learn about what makes her, and then a man will come with confidence, full confidence about what they know from what the world, and they're going to command and sort of like set the tone in this bedroom because that's what they know. Why do you think that varies so much? Because where do you go and learn so that when you show up in the relationship that you want to be permanent, not that when you date somebody, I mean, I know there are people who go into it for a short time, but imagining you want a long time with this person, how do you now transition from what I know from if I can call it that, to practice? Because girls also don't want to talk about what they know because there's a lot of judge.
Yeah,
there's a lot of judge or we guy.
I think the issue now is before the sex happens. I think the mistake most often is that we want to have the sex conversation after the deed has happened, and probably more than once or twice or 3 times. So when people have sex, they automatically think, well, this is the standard of sex we ought to be having. And this is because if you agreed, let's say from a touching and a kissing point of view, you didn't like certain techniques used there. And then if you allow that to happen and you don't bring it up, and it's not addressed, and then it happens again for the second time, this automatically registers in the head to say, oh, maybe this is what she likes. And when you are just saying, hey, maybe he'll figure me out. Maybe so the idea here is that sex is a very intimate thing. So if you are going to be afraid to address issues that you would like to see happen and things that you don't like to see happen, you are robbing yourself of the best sex that you would have with that particular person. So the issue here is that it has to begin with conversation. What is it that you like? And you have some that are less experienced than others. Be open with that particular concept, or I'm less experienced and I'm literally willing to learn. Can we bring tools into the picture if none of us is willing to be the teacher? Because now, like you just said, now if you meet a guy that wants to pass off as if they know what they are doing, but sex is very practical. If mutasa you have these people where you don't kiss somebody and then they literally shove their whole tongue. So now if you don't, you need to be sensitive again when you push them away to say, I think let's try to do this certain way or that way without causing offense. And I think education can happen sometimes while the deed is happening. Let the climax happen if it happens, or let the session end. Or can we revisit the performance of the night? What did you like about?
What are that positive tone? What did you like?
Yeah, because sometimes what sets people or what shuts people down is that when you go correct It's literally do you do that?
No, I'm just saying I can see how that won't work.
It's a very horrible experience for whoever is. I know I've done it once where somebody was like, man, like, most women fail with this woman on top phenomenon. So it's how you deliver the criticism and how you bring someone back, because you would like to have good sex. You would like to have good sexual experiences with this particular individual. So I think the conversationing around it and the transparency around it will help.
No, very key. And I like that to say, ising more, because sometimes that's out of a point of frustration because maybe you've let it happen for a long time.
Yeah.
And then you're happy, hey, same thing. And you're like, what one? But more than that, and our generation, I'm going to speak on behalf of the 80s, not all of you, please don't come for me. But now I think conversation has changed and you've got this element of sexual liberation. But I don't know many men who are happily still open about exploring. And I don't mean exploring but being open to what's new. Because maybe signature, that's what works for me, or I'm safe in this. So that's it. In your spaces, is that a reflection?
I think all men are wild, because whoever I've taken to summits, what I always make it a point that I take a group of friends to summit now and then. And you get to see the level of sexual wildness. Not that they get there and do anything with anyone, but the idea of being consumed with so many different body shapes and nakedness in the room just inspires a certain level of childness inside of them. And then if men were consecutive where sex is consent, outside, not if they were consecutive where sex is consent, I don't think there would be a high degree of cheating.
Oh, you mean conservative? Yes.
Yeah, because now, if you are conservative, then that means that you would be conserved within this conservativeness of yours. So the problem is that we got in with this particular demeanor in this relationship or this marriage. Yes. And then now, with this thing, we are able to be conservative here, but we are able to lose ourselves somewhere else.
Yeah.
This is still the same human being that you can still adopt and bring back here.
Yeah.
And again, and
And I on another level. That's the other thing. Yeah. Because the switch happens, ne? And then no papa then I feel like, okay, this is marriage sex.
Yes.
And then there's dating sex. Yes. And the two are worlds apart.
I think the problem is that when we allow different elements of responsibility, so the difference is that when we're dating, the relationship does not incur a lot of responsibility on it. It does not have a lot of demand on it. It does not need the attention between the two people is not divided amongst a host of other things. Sometimes I don't even know about that. But when we start staying together, we are affected by the light bill, the water bill, the kids, the in-laws, your job, my job. Because sometimes we could talk about your job, but now we are in the same bed, and then we're coming with these different types of weight. It's understanding that even in relationship, you need to make time for sex. Because at that time, we were not staying together. Every time we got to, I last saw you last month or 3 weeks ago. Obviously, it will look like every time we're together, we are having sex. The twist now is that we are together all the time. We are not together now and then, we're together all the time. So we need to find a way to squeeze in the sex right in there. And then another thing that kills sex, and then you are not in the mood. Like we're sleeping in the same bed. And then I do it again for the second time. So all men will shut down on the third.
Because rejection.
Yes. No man likes rejection.
Yeah.
And then if the man is the one always advancing for the sex to happen, we can even turn the tables around. If a woman is literally getting themselves out there and trying, and now no human being loves the idea of rejection. So rejection becomes literally the threshold where people just say, I'm no longer invested in that thing. And then immediately when that happens, we start exploring exploring other avenues of satisfaction, whether it's masturbation, pornography, or escort agencies. The reality of the matter is this need needs to be taken care of. And once it gets out of here, then the levels of control have literally left the house.
And, for me, it makes me think about what you said about every time you take the men to the summit. I mean, I want to ask, but it's up to you whether to answer, whether you're taking your friends or is this an exercise, group exercise, young, just to see how people are. Because I feel like the women need to also do things like that. There is this inequality, also, I'm speaking... like my peers and whatever, but I mean, we are changing and we are wanting to do better. I guess that's why conversations like this are key. Now we let the men lead the kind of sex we want to have, and we sort of like take a back seat because Linda said to keep on like that or okay, but more than that, I keep certain things to me because I want to participate in preserving how, whether it's my husband or long-term partner or my boyfriend sees me. But that leads me into a corner of an unfulfilled intimate life. Like you're saying, sex needs to happen. And it's either you're going to have good sex or bad sex. And I feel like one of the dangers of not fulfilling yourself are things like where you turn somewhere else. But more that where you want to explore, but you're alone, but you're in a relationship. Like now we're talking about the issue of masturbation. I've heard of couples who masturbate together as something that brings them closer because it's a level of vulnerability. Like nobody can get that close to see me naked and play with myself. You understand? The layers are many. So how can we get closer together and explore this realm, which is the bedroom, as a couple? Because hey, Hanchi, like I love us because we are progressive, but Hanchi, we rather Skinner or hey, Mas Mamang, hey, they broke up. Hey, that's how we get into bed.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Look, like I said before, like your relationship started on the basis of conversation. So if we are not going to have conversation on other pressing issues, we're going to have issues. The reality is that sex is the highest form of intimacy. And if we're going to lose out on that experience together, like you just mentioned now, there are couples who would masturbate together because they found a bonding, but there's a wall they needed to break. I still don't understand how you could be reserved with somebody that you said you wanted to be with for the rest of your life. I still don't understand how you would be reserved with somebody that you said you love and you want to build a life with. And another thing, if you have not showed leadership in certain areas of life within the house, it's going to be impossible to show leadership in the area of sex. So what then creates a problem is that as a woman, you have not shown that you can care for the house without somebody. Then baby, so sometimes we need to trust that we can trust with you. We can trust ourselves with you emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, so that we can bring all these other elements in it. Because you can't be exceptionally freaky here and not be exceptionally attentive here. If you're going to lose me on the realm of respect, how then do you expect us to be freaky here? If I'm going to lose you at the level of understanding your emotional vulnerabilities and your triggers, how then do I expect you to get in the bed and twist and turn and then jump and be flying on top of the ceiling without being able to handle the most vulnerable places inside of you? So what people don't understand is that the minute you stay together, the layers of vulnerability in the relationship starts being experienced, and it automatically affects the sex. I mean, if somebody made you feel like a child, made you feel useless in a particular conversation, how then do they expect that when you come upstairs, they will become sexually available? Because you still need to account for the things you said. You still need to apologize for something. You're the same person. You are still the same person. So the problem now is that before we could argue, you would go to your place and go to mine, we'll have a cool-off period and then meet together after 2 days or 2 weeks or a week, however it works. But the reality is that we argued downstairs, we're going to sleep on the same bed tonight in a couple of hours' time. So there's no cool-off period. So the reality is the sooner we learn how to address conflict, the sooner we can. So addressing conflict becomes a form of foreplay now in itself, so that it leads to another thing.
100%. I see that.
Yeah.
So you guys' ability to solve your issues is how you're going to meet each other's highest order sexually.
Yes.
Because you would have learned to say, okay, ikama boxing. When me and my husband or wife, whatever, we are in the bed, we've put it away.
Yes.
Because what happens is that now how our lived experience is that it becomes a break. Then there's another one. Then there's another. So what do you advise couples in that situation? Because I know somebody watching is like, and then we don't have enough tools. And sometimes we want to right. How do you access people that are that close to both conflict and their intimacy? Because I feel like how so be alone, naked, look at yourself, touch yourself. Okay, you know, it's hard to tell Papa Tabo, no man, you know, because you yourself are not reaching that level of comfortability. Or are we you still hang on, you understand?
Yeah.
So I think the development in self pours into the development in the partner in the relationship.
Facts. But then again, the illusion is the same people who find it difficult to be sexually expressive in marriage or relationships. Should they go on a weekend away somewhere?
I know.
It's an issue of being honest to yourself, really, to say, it's like you're saying, the idea of self-development and loving yourself and being one with yourself. And then again, revisiting, who did you sell to this person when the relationship started? Because another thing that creates issues, or you sold an idea that was not, you sold an illusionary idea of you that was not there. And now that you have the relationship, this illusion of yours can't sustain this idea because the real you is somewhere behind here. So now I always say, guys, if you love having sex, how to my relationship? Just tell the person, I love sex. I love my sex, and I don't intend on letting anything get in between me and that. Will you be able to handle that? And then if somebody told you that and you married them, then you must understand that you using your emotions or their fight to deny them sex is going to build a monster in them, because sooner or later...
It's actually borderline abusive.
Yes, it's very abusive. They're going to find an outlet. And once they attach themselves to that outlet, it's going to be very difficult to connect now with you after these whole things are resolved. Now, my issue now is if you are fighting and you're not talking for 2 to 3 days, you must understand that you are teaching each other how to survive without one another.
Like, I have to say, that one is, most couples go through that. And for me, I can only speak on the part of the woman, because there happens to be a disconnect, because I want to be close, but the issue, like you spoke a little bit about conflict revolution, the issue persists. And perhaps by the time it's Alisa Buledisana, you're like, again, you know? So you're like, at what point do I get to letting go of maybe this requirement that I've asked for, or whatever it is does not be met, and get to a place where I also have an obligation to intimately connect with this partner. For us, those things can exist like this. And I know most women, you know, can relate, but there are those who figured it out. They're like, okay, ingondo ingena because lana silete logo, and they can do that separation. But I feel like a lot of us need a talking to as to how.
Yeah.
Because in order for me to fully show up. Because if it's a thing, chances are fine, we will touch each other, kiss, whatever, but it's definitely not going to be a quality intimate session.
Fact.
Yeah.
So the idea is you need to then interrogate, are we having obligation sex?
Let's not shy away from the conversation. A long-term relationship, obligation sex.
So that's what I'm saying. So if we're going to set our sexual precedents on the obligation sex, we have short-circuited the growth of our sexual experience combined. So now if the obligation sex, if we live off the obligation sex for so long, it becomes the order of our sex. then that's gonna short circuit our sexual experience in the relationship, because now we have taken this minuscule, non-functional. You were horny and I didn't want to deny you, and then we had a conversation last door. But now this was just purely obligation. So if we're not gonna grow from obligation sex to intimate sex, the layers then will not be peeled, and then we will never get to a point where we are forget about introducing anything in
because
the
bedroom,
there's no progression until we progress from the point of obligation to now. Prepared this weekend we are going to show each other flames. I understand, but we are not gonna get there for as long as it's obligated or Wednesday or where you grown a pressure. Hey, Thursday and we haven't done anything. Now feel like let me just get this thing out of the way and get it over.
Wow.
Yeah,
the facts are there. Okay, then talk to us about the tools, and I'm not talking about maybe body's sex toy. By the time it's sex toy, I think humonati.
Yeah,
but the conflict resolution tools that speak to helping the intimacy. So, I know, I mean, these things but on social media, but practically, if you eyes for that, whatever I didn't do, whatever, how do I melt them? Happy, because chances are I also miss them in that 2 days. So, but when you're like, ish,
It's basic things, man, like showing appreciation. Smalayana things, baby, I'm on my way. Thank you for cooking. Like, must orientated, or when you cooked and you dished up and you bring this food. I know this is at least I no longer now show gratitude towards your action. Because so automatically that thing, whether we like it or not, kills your self-esteem. Or how about am I ever going to be appreciated? The fact that Papa love brown or love white, can we just be appreciated? Because those things build up to the foreplay. By the time we get here, there's a sense of appreciation that we know that we mutually share amongst each other. Hearing that you are beautiful, even though I ain't really zero, but I know it does something to you. You tell me why is we really zero, Mara? 2 hours, the eyebrows. What's then where guy? Like, where's the you look nice? And who's going to experience all this today because when she or whatever. It's all like, where guy? I mean, tell me I'm beautiful first. Yeah, but at the core of everything, I get because it matters most to you that you look the way you. It doesn't to you. Wait, I get before it gets here, it starts there first. Okay, because it needs to matter to you. Because if it doesn't matter to you, me saying it won't have any kind of effect on you. If you don't feel beautiful, if you don't think you're beautiful because you don't even see the need to take an effort in you being beautiful, it means it doesn't mean anything to you. Even the day you do no, it's fine. So the reason is it has to start from you first, so that by the time I give you the compliment, it literally complements the compliment you've already given yourself. So the idea here is that we need to learn to just literally be affirming with one another, appreciative with one another, and an idea or let's exposition here. Let's explore. That's a whole new topic. Like, I want that one. Because sometimes it's different positions generate different kinds of orgasms and climax. So if we're not going to explore, we would never know. Blessed are those who have been twisting and turning before they got married, so they know what works for them. So it's a bit hard for those who have not been exploring. You understand? Now they are in this thing, so now we both need to figure out what works for us sexually, and then the more we are comfortable with it, the more we can grow to other spaces. And there are that's the other thing in these relationships that we spend so long in, right? Maybe you get somebody who's what a traditional man would view as pure because they are young, 20s, whatever, and then this person has no kids, then they maybe have 2 or 3 kids later in life. 20, it's changed. And I guess being a person who you are the only person they know, maybe in some instances, and then when you find that out, but the space at which they want to explore is no longer comfortable because
the weight of the 10 years or 12 years we've spent together, it's like, this person, or I'm no longer that girl. You know, I've discovered parts about my body or things that I like, whether from being by myself or going to the women's trip. I'll tell you, even though it looks like debauchery, we teach each other a lot when we are out, purely from conversation. But sometimes, you know, you hear somebody's experience, you're like, okay, it means I haven't been getting it right. Go high. I must try something else.
Yeah.
You know. But then, how then do you couch that conversation? Because your husband sees you as that girl. I'm just going to make an example because that's where my parents are from. Huskies. That girl goes to Marapiane, you know, apara di pampo, at least dust. Now this person is.
It's like you're describing someone.
I'm describing me, please. But yeah, those kind of relationships exist. And you find that later, because what's been served no longer serve them. So how do you grow? And really too, you still accept each other because or whatever. Because when you got married, you were younger. And that version of who you married, there's not going to self-sustain forever. And hanchi, I saw the effect. I'm asking.
I was about to ask, where are you gathering the statistics?
No, I'm very passionate about this topic. So, with strangers, and I find that there's, you know, commonality in how we think. Even though I see the change, I see it. I don't want to lie. I have to acknowledge the men that try. I have to.
We first need to then agree that all human beings love sex. All of them, both male and female. We all love sex. I mean, you and I sitting right here were a result of sex.
Hallelujah.
Whether it was obligation or intimate or squirting, there was squirting and orgasm included. So the notion that men or women are not doing this or don't want to do that needs to be debunked to a certain extent, because the high rate of infidelity wouldn't be where it is, because people are not cheating so that they can have good friends. They're cheating so that they can have exceptional sex. So if these creatures live in all of us, can we be honest enough to bring them home? And I think that the thing here is that we don't want to be honest to say, Barakaman, I think it was Khalil Gibran or Kal Young that says, inside in every movie there's a hero and a villain. But in your story, in every story there's a hero and a villain, but in your story you are both. So if you are not going to be able to express the hero in you and the villain in you where your partner is concerned, during the retreat over the weekend, I said to the couples, Gary, if your partner does not know something about you that somebody else knows, you must know that automatically you have created a point of shame. Because
that is intimacy.
That is intimacy right there. Yes. So how then are we going to trust people? How are you going to be comfortable with somebody rimming you when they don't know a particular thing about you? So we need to then bring these things to the point of reality, or how. So how is a blowjob going to be effective here if they don't know that you have 2 kids that you've never told them about, and somebody knows this thing? Noel Jones says, everybody has a secret, but the funny thing about your secret is that somebody else knows it. And if that person is not in the house, you must know that it's going to hinder the intimacy levels of the house, because somebody knows something about me that my partner does not know. And at any given point in time, they can use that knowledge against me to get me to do what I don't want to do with them. So the reality is that, we need to learn that intimacy is, before we get naked, we need to be naked. Before the nudity happens, then let's be naked emotionally, from a past point of view, a present point of view, and a futuristic point of view. Because if I'm going to have sex with you, I'm having sex with the totality of you. Who you were yesterday, who you are today, and who you are becoming, that's going to be your tomorrow. So if then we are not going to be able to do all of these things, the reason why hookup culture is nice is because there's no burden of accountability. There's no burden of responsibility. So it looks like they're having good sex. That's but normally it's the good sex is followed by regret.
And give them 2 years, that sex won't be the same.
It won't be the same. You understand? So I think we need to first start here that the individuals having the sex are human beings that need to find a way to be vulnerable with one another. And then we can twist and turn all we want.
I have to also commend you for being aware of that. Real intimacy is actually the emotional rawness. And earlier you spoke about, how do I approach this person? Is this person safe?
Yes.
For example. So, with the belief, maybe how it's a twist and turns, it's actually meant for, other types of women and not the person they married. Then it becomes hard because how do you rewrite what's been ingrained in their head? Because you believe or that thing, and how was that I won? Chances of you going back and saying, okay, the cock ring, the anal, whatever thing, that's not ever going to happen because the first time you try to open that window, you were met with huge resistance and judgment. And I don't want to blame that person because it's a natural human reaction. Something you don't know. That's why umakala. I do wish for us though, what I can see one keep why I'm put a sex toy. And there's another belief as well because if we bring the sex toy, or maybe the sex toy is in the form of a dildo, it's gonna replace. Yeah. And we're gonna have an episode on all of that and debunk all those myths. But my big thing is your initial reaction actually scars your partner, whether you're a male or female. But I want that scar being revisited only one. How can you put only one? No man. Is it because we really someone? Is it because we want to go TV? Is it because nan-tweki yirang? That self-introspection, I think, is important so that at least the second time we have the conversation, you are starting it. Man, what's a man about politica something? Why no mputisabiao? And then do you see that we've got a chance? But from the person who's asked, the man don't put on, hi, I'm not gonna go there anytime soon. I mean, it's real like that. So now you want to replace me? You've got a dildo. And then that part of you rather give it to your friends in terms of talking about it, or maybe appearing like you have experience in it. But there's this denial part of, and I feel like for me, wellness in your intimate life, it pours out. We've had this couple of years where we are being awakened to mental health. But sexual health is, I say, only condoms.
Yeah.
It extends all the way to your emotional well-being and being fulfilled intimately, knowing the desires I have as a human being, which I can probably satisfy by myself. But because I'm in this relationship that demands my time and I am in this partnership where what I don't know, maybe then we learn together. When you both of you then you laugh. Maybe you try it the wrong way, you laugh about it, and then you visit. It's opened a conversation for maybe it's not for us. But then to get the same effect, this is how we can get closer. Yes. And I wonder about why we are not having more of those conversations.
Look, I think another thing earlier we need to check people's inadequacies literally scream out most of the time when challenged or confronted with things. Like when somebody comes and tries to suggest things that we can do in the bedroom and they become defensive. We then need to check, is it an inadequacy thing? Do they feel somehow about themselves? Now they are projecting it out as a defense mechanism. Because if my self-worth has issues in and of itself, if you saying let's buy a cock ring or something to enhance our sex life, and then I get defensive about it, does that speak to me as an individual rather than the thing that is being proposed that should happen in the bedroom? I've always said to people, if a person comes to you, if you don't believe you are ugly and somebody comes and tells you that you are ugly, that statement has no effect whatsoever. But sometimes we get mad because we go through life believing that we are stupid, believing that we are ugly, that when somebody else says it, it literally confirms everything. That's the reason why you are angry is because you also believe it. And then you come out and so if Mutu suggests something, most of the time you're because you know that you are not satisfying them. You've seen it. You've seen the fact that you came before they came. You've seen the idea that when you got off, they turned and looked the other way. You've seen that there's never really been a smile on their face.
But the conversation is hard.
The conversation is hard. So when it happens, it automatically it will hit the ego. And then here's another thing that men know it's true, that they find joy in knowing that you are satisfied. Men find joy in knowing. So it shouldn't be hard to have these conversations, because when I see you come and a shame when you guys do come, Niba lovely and nice. Oh my goodness, it just makes everything okay. like if guys understood,
we whistle in the morning.
Yeah. If guys understood how much they could get away with just by taking care of business. Because another thing that I always tell to my friends, Kiwori, the things you are not willing to do with your girlfriend or your wife, there's some dude who's ready to do them out there.
And you hope they never meet them.
And you hope that they never meet them. And the reality of the matter is that they will be with you. Why Pinela, my body's here with you, but my mind is on the other side of town. So you honestly don't want to open that Pandora's box. And another thing is that men are convinced that they are the only ones who can step out of relationships. Women can cheat better than men. And I think that stats have proven that beyond reasonable doubt. That is why 75% of DNA tests come back negative to show how good women are at this cheating game. But to explore a beautiful sex life, there has to be vulnerability. Without that, it's funny how people like acting like they know, but the results show that they do not know, and they can't get themselves to admitting that they do not know.
And there's such beauty in not knowing.
There's beauty in not knowing, because no one is going to hold you to this particular standard. How you used to suck with blowjobs at these days. So it also assures you to say, I'm happy with this here. I'm not going to go out there. But obligation, sexual obligation has then limited us here. And then the ceiling is here. Next week. We just had sex, but did we interrogate? Was it good sex? Was it obligation? Was it were we both satisfied out of it? So I think the idea of being vulnerable needs to be reinstated in relationships.
Yeah, and I think that's like where I'm going to leave it the most, because I'm a firm believer, because I've also had a vulnerability journey that's a long time coming, obviously coming from family matriarchs, and they're so strong, and they've been protectors, and they, give you that, and you don't know that you're taking it. Kante haibereki in a relationship where the walls need to be down because lead to, but you're coming from, that upbringing where whoever's raising you, and they had to wrestle, and when you like energy relationship and I feel like a lot of us are there. So leaving the conversation there, I think, gives us room to obviously further it, I hope, next time, so that we are able to keep on awakening even somebody, one person, because until Rikramo, where we are open completely, we are able to love better and obviously show up better for our partners in terms of intimacy and all the things that connect us to them.
Yes.
So thank you very much for your time. I think Untutile, and I think somebody out there has taken a nugget. Where can people support your work, Leroy?
www.leroytau.co.za.
And that's it. That's all we have time for on Bedtime the podcast. I keep thinking about the other show. Thank you. I think that's it. Yeah.
Ooh, it's hot in this.
That was hot. That was fire. Well done.